Hi everyone, this is AJ. Welcome back to episode 7 of A Tangled Web, my lead up to the release of Spider-Man No Way Home, and me reviewing every other Spider-Man film up to this point, starting with the Sam Raimi verse. So obviously in the last episode we took a break from the live action Spider-Mans to take a look at Into the Spider-Verse. Now we're jumping back into the live action Spider-Mans with the MCU era of Spider-Man. So without further ado, let's talk about the first of these films, Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, so Spider-Man Homecoming was the joint venture of Sony and Marvel coming together to collaborate on Spider-Man within the MCU. Spider-Man Homecoming was released on July the 5th, 2017 here in the UK with a rating of 12A and a runtime of 2 hours and 13 minutes. It had been given a budget of 175 million and went on to get a worldwide gross of 880 million. So massive hit. Marvel were very happy, Sony were very happy. So yeah, all brilliant stuff. Now this film was directed by John Watts, who had some previous directing credits to his name. The only film that I've seen that he's ever directed was Cop Car, starring Kevin Bacon. The film was written by John Watts himself, along with Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly. So the cast for this film, obviously we saw the return of Tom Holland. I say the return, even though it's the first Spider-Man film. He had a cameo, an extended cameo appearance in Civil War, which is where we got his introduction. So Tom Holland played Peter Parker, aka your friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. Michael Keaton took up villain duties in this film as Adrian Toomes, or aka the Vulture. Michael Keaton, fantastic actor, brilliant to see him back in the comic book world. He truly stands out, he shines. Robert Downey Jr. reprises his role as Tony Stark, Iron Man, Spider-Man's mentor in essence. Marissa Tomei plays May Parker, Aunt May. Jon Favreau, the architect of the MCU, the guy who directed Iron Man, the first Iron Man, returns as Happy Hogan, a very welcome return. And rounding out the cast, we have Zendaya as Michelle, who we come to find out is actually the MCU's version of MJ. Jacob Batalon as Ned. This is Peter Parker's best friend. And Laura Harrier as Liz, who's the wannabe girlfriend within this film, and daughter to Adrian Toomes. Wonderful cast. A lot of other characters introduced into the mix as well, and there we go. So this film starts off just prior to the events of Civil War. We see Peter Parker being taken. So this film starts off with a flashback scene to just after the events of the Battle of New York that occurred in 2012's Avengers. And you've got Adrian Toomes and his team of guys on clean-up duty. But the government step in, sort of headed by Tony Stark on clean-up duties. I don't mean Tony Stark was there, he's behind it. And this kind of puts Adrian Toomes, Michael Keaton's character, in a sort of difficult position where he can't fund his men. They've all got families and this sort of a thing, and so it's this very small scale, personal vendetta kind of a thing that kicks off at this point. We then jump forward and we meet up with Peter Parker on his way to the events of Civil War. He's been taken by Happy Hogan to Germany for those events. After those events, Peter's kind of put on the radar of Tony Stark, and he's told that if we need you, we'll call you. Peter's eager for this to happen, but that call never comes. So Peter's kind of mulling around the city, taking on petty thieves. helping old people cross the road, this sort of thing in his Spider-Man, you know, role. He keeps on phoning Happy Hogan to try and get, you know, information on when he can be useful and this sort of thing, but no recall ever returns. So the film kind of progresses like that. But as the film carries on, you know, Peter gets involved with this alien tech that's out on the market, which has been sold by Adrian Toomes' guys, and he sort of gets involved in that mix of stuff. It turns out that Adrian Toomes' daughter is Liz, the girl that Peter Parker is very much interested in at the school, which leads to this fantastic scene in the car, which is one of the best scenes in the MCU, where in no uncertain terms, Peter's in the back of the car, Michael Keaton's in the front. Michael Keaton turns around and says to him, I know you're Spider-Man. He's figured it all out, this sort of thing. It's quite an I'll kill you and all this sort of, you know, really sort of very well acted from Michael Keaton's perspective and this sort of thing. And the film progresses, and Michael Keaton's character wants to steal some more tech off of Tony Stark as they're clearing out Avengers Mansion. So he hijacks the automated plane, and yeah, it's this sort of a thing. So, I won't go into depth into the story, but obviously there's a lot more to it than that. Now, this felt like a very fresh film upon first viewing. It was different. It was faster edited than any other Spider-Man film we'd had before that. The script wasn't sort of world destroying or this sort of thing. It was a very sort of, you know, the motives of the villain were quite small, this sort of thing. Some people may have had issue with that, but it worked fine for the story. Although it does sort of culminate in this, what you may feel needed to be a bigger sort of ending in the film. The cast is wonderful, you know, they come together really well. The interactions and that between, you know, it's really great to see. Tom Holland is fantastic in the role. Michael Keaton's a standout. Marissa Tomei's brilliant as a younger May Parker. Jon Favreau, like I said, he's always happy to see him on screen, no pun intended. He's got a wonderful character, and it's great they give him a bit more depth within these films. Zendaya's different, as a different kind of MJ, you know, in her portrayal, a sort of geekiness, a sort of, you know, she's sort of more enclosed in herself than outgoing than MJ has ever been before. She's more withdrawn and, you know, just stays away from other people and this sort of thing. Yeah, the film plays heavy on Peter Parker being younger, and he does feel younger in this with his excitement about Ned's Lego, Death Star and all this sort of thing, and he's still got Star Wars figures. And do you know what I mean? So there's this element of Peter Parker that we haven't really seen before. Although Peter Parker's always been portrayed as relatively young in the other films, you never actually got that sense. He's always come across as older, but in this one, Tom Holland does a fantastic job of conveying the age that he's at and the struggles that come with that and being Spider-Man and this sort of a thing. Like I said, Robert Downey Jr. pops up in the film on occasion. My opinion on that is it doesn't bother me. Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind if he wasn't there. It really doesn't bother. These films need to get out of the shadow of the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man stuff, and I'm hoping we get that in the third film, because obviously when I do my review for the second film, you'll see that plays on it heavy as well. But overall, fantastic film. I would say it's probably about 15 minutes too long. It does start to drag on repeat viewings. There are elements of it that, you know, that it doesn't work when you continuously repeat view this film. But other than that, it's a niggling point. It's a very good film, very good entry into the MCU, and a fantastic return for this character, and makes you want to see more. The film is sort of based on sort of high school films of the sort of 80s era and plays heavy into that. But ultimately, it's an enjoyable ride, a fresh take, a fresh spin on the character. Takes him out of his usual setting of New York City, and does something somewhat different with him. So a strong entry, a strong lead character or lead actor, surrounded by a strong cast that all deliver within this film and add to the humour, to the fast editing. You know, it all works, it all comes together nicely. But anyway, so you know, a great film in the entry of the Spider-Mans. Very enjoyable. So anyway, it's AJ. Thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow to see my thoughts on the next Spider-Man film, Far From Home. See you then. Take care. Goodbye.